So good afternoon, everyone, or morning, evening, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Johanna Siliakus, and I work for the Emerging Areas Transport Sector Office at the Asian Development Bank. You're all warmly welcome to today's webinar, Electrifying Road Freight Transport, the case from People's Republic of China by Qiuyang Liu. And today's webinar will elaborate on strategies and practices for road freight transportation in the People's Republic of China, which is really a world leader on freight transport, e-mobility in freight transport. So this will be highly relevant and highly interesting to hear more about. So we'll hear both about urban logistics related e-mobility solutions, as well as about inter-urban zero-emission freight corridors as well. And as you probably already know, so this webinar is organized under the umbrella of the e-mobility support and investment platform for Asia and the Pacific. This is a knowledge-sharing platform that aims to build capacity and support the scale-up of financing of e-mobility initiatives. The platform is operated by ADB, and it's supported by UNEP and the GEF, the Global Environment Facility. And today's webinar will actually be the last webinar session under this series for a while, as we are going on a break for now. So currently we're actually planning a number of online training workshops, which will be the next activity of the e-mobility platform coming your way. So we expect these sessions to take place around late April or in May, and we'll keep you posted on more details and dates as soon as they have been confirmed. So if you are not yet on our mailing list, but would like to join it to receive updates on our upcoming activities, including these online training workshops that I mentioned, the easiest way to do so is to fill in our assessment survey, where you can leave us your contact details. You can also email myself. You can see my email on the screen right there, in case you just want to be added on the list and not fill in the survey. So the QR code for the survey is now on the screen. We'll share a link to the survey in the chat as well in a bit. And today's session will be moderated by Adele Samuels. She's an associate at our implementing partner, Integrated Transport Planning. So yes, let me hand over to Adele for her to take us through the rest of this session. Thank you, Adele. Over to you.
Thanks, Johanna. Before introducing today's agenda and speakers, just a couple of words on the house rules. To ensure a smooth webinar session, can we have all microphones disabled? At the end of today's session, there will be some time for questions from the audience. Please send us your questions through the Q&A function available at the bottom of your screen. You can send questions throughout the presentation. In comparison to our webinar series last year, we've extended the slot from 30 minutes to 45 minutes to ensure that we have sufficient time for discussion. So please note that this webinar session will be recorded and it will be shared online. Moving on to the agenda, today's session of 45 minutes is packed with interesting topics. First, we will have the presentation by today's speaker, Qiuyang Liu, from ITDP, who I will introduce shortly. After this, we will have a commentary from ADB's side by Bert Fabian, also to be properly introduced in a short while. After Bert's commentary, we will move forward to the Q&A session, where we hope for active participation from the audience and yourselves. Thus, please feel free to share questions to us through the Q&A function during the presentation and Bert's comments. Now, let me introduce the speaker for today's session, Qiuyang Liu. Qiuyang is a senior transportation engineer at the Institute of Transportation and Development Policy, ITDP. In her current position, Qiuyang specializes in transport demand modeling, public policy and logistics, and supply chain management. Her recent projects involve policy analysis of electric vehicles and the development of sustainable urban transport systems. Yang holds a master's degree in transport from Imperial College London and University College London. As mentioned earlier, today we also have Bert Fabian from Emerging Areas Transport Sector Office, ADB, who would be providing his comments and ADB's perspective into electrification of road freight transport right after Yang's presentation. Bert is a senior transport specialist at ADB, specializing in sustainable transport, air quality, and climate change. He previously worked at UNEP, leading initiatives on clean mobility and air pollution in Asia Pacific. And prior to that, he managed transport programs at Clean Air Asia. Without further ado, let me hand over to Yang for her presentation. As mentioned earlier, we have a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar, and you're welcome to post us questions throughout the session. Yang, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele, for introducing. So I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, it's working. Should be working. Hello, everyone, and I am Yang, and I am the transportation engineer at the IDDP, and I am based in China, Beijing. And today I'm very happy to share with you how China's electrification journey in terms of the road transport. And firstly, let me introduce the outline of my presentation. So I will be starting with giving you a very brief overview of the current transportation emissions in China and globally. And then we will dive into China's strategy to promote the electric trucks. It will be including the how to electrify the vehicles and so support the infrastructure and also prioritize the right of way. And then I will give you two cases. One is in the electric urban logistics, and the second one is on the long-haul transportation of how to deploy the zero-emission freight corridor in China. And I will also give you the challenges and recommendations of these two cases. And finally, it's a summary. Firstly, let's see how is the world GHG emission profile in 2021. This is the latest figure by WRI. And you can see transportation here, it is the second largest GHG emitter and accounts for 13.7% of the total global GHG emissions. And then in terms of the end use, and the road transportation is comes to the also the second largest emitter. So this is why we are talking about road transportation today. And this is also a research result by Bloomberg, and you can see that the medium and heavy commercial vehicles, although they have quite a small fleet size, it's only 83 million globally, but it still contributes to 30% of the 30% of the road transport emission. And if we don't take any actions, and it will be not on the track of decarbonizing the overall sector. So this is also the so we really need to take the urgent actions to decarbonizing the trucks. And let's see the figures from China. So the trucks are the dominant freight transportation mode by the weight, by the tonnage, and also by the activity volumes. And here you can see the trucks are the 78% in terms of the total tons of the freight transportation, and also accounts for the around half of the ton kilometers of the total freight volumes. And also trucks, although they only have 9% of the total vehicle stock level, but they still contribute to over 50% of the carbon dioxide emissions in China. So this is also why we need to really think about how we can electrify the trucks to decarbonize the road transport. However, it is very challenging, we think, especially compared with the passenger transportation. The free transportation scenarios, they are really complex, and there are a very diverse range of the different types of goods to be transported. So it requires tailored solutions based on the specific situation, also in specific regions, depends on different contexts. And also the infrastructure is not adequate in terms of whether it is charging piles, it is the battery swapping stations, or the hydrogen refueling station infrastructure. They are not quite sufficient nationwide in China. Also, most of the carriers, they are the small operators. You can see the figure here. The fleets with over 20 units of the vehicles, they only accounts for 45% of the total heavy duty sales. And most of them are still the small fleets with the individual operator. So among the 8 million road-free transport operators in China, so nearly 70% of them are still the small fleets with less than 5 vehicles. So it is really hard to push them to purchase the electric trucks rather than the diesel trucks. So how is China doing to electrify these heavy duty vehicles? And let's take a look of the policy supports. The first one I want to highlight is the subsidies for purchasing the electric trucks. Here is an example by the Chinese government. The policy released in the mid of 2024, and the national government will be providing the subsidies for the operators who are aiming to phasing out and also purchasing the new vehicles. So the national government will be giving the subsidies for these operators. If they early scrap their diesel trucks, then they could receive 45,000 Chinese yuan. And also if they then purchasing the new electric trucks or the trucks with the Nation 6 or better emission standards, they can also receive another subsidies for this procurement. The total amount of the procurement could reach 140,000 Chinese yuan. So this is roughly about 30% of the total purchasing cost of an electric truck. So it could be really incentivize the operators to change to the electric trucks if they are concerning about the high procurement cost. And also for the electric vehicles, they are also free from the vehicle purchase tax. This could also be a release for the heavy burden of the financial burden. And the second strategy is about enhancing the infrastructure provision and also the green energy supply. At the national level, the national government is providing the subsidies for constructing or for installing the charging piles, whether it is the DC piles or the AC piles. They can both of them could receive the national subsidies. And China is also having many pilots, having different kinds of pilots. Here I listed 3 of them, very typical 3. One is on the pilot zone for fully electrifying the public sector vehicles. So the public sector vehicles are including the urban delivery trucks. And for the cities or the zone who are qualified to this pilot, they could have the policy support by the national government and to support the charging infrastructure installation. So, for example, the Tangshan city, which is a city located in the middle of China, and it aims to have 26,000 charging piles and over 5,000 heavy duty battery swapping stations. And once they set this goal, the national government will then provide the tailored supportive policies to this city. And the government is also encouraging these pilot zones to explore the emerging technologies such as vehicle-to-grid V2G and the Internet of Things IoT and the battery swapping options to encouraging them to fully electrify these vehicles. And another pilot is about building the heavy-duty vehicle battery swapping network. And this is a pilot released in early 2024, and it has the goal of by 2026 to complete a 1,000-kilometer wide heavy-duty vehicle battery swapping corridor. And this is still in the progress, but it is heavily supported by the government. And the third pilot is about the urban green freight distribution demonstration project. So many cities are selected by this demonstration project and will also be giving the tailored policy support. At the subnational level, there are also many supports for the infrastructure, such as in Beijing, if you newly build the charging pile, you can receive the subsidies, and also you can have the discount on the electricity price purchase if you purchase from the national grid. And so these are also the financial support for the infrastructure. And sorry, the number is wrong. So this is the third strategy. It is about prioritizing the right of way of the electric trucks and also giving the toll charge exemption. And even when they are passing by the highways. Here I give you many examples in different provinces or in different cities. For the electric trucks or the hydrogen electric truck, they can have the discount on the toll charge or have totally free from the toll charge. So if you know the toll charge accounts around 20% of the total operational cost for trucks. So this policy could really lower down the total cost of the ownership for the electric trucks and to incentivize them to shift from the diesel trucks to electric trucks, because diesel trucks, they still need to pay the full charge on the toll when they are using the highways. But for the electric or the hydrogen electric trucks, they don't need. So because of this effort, China's already have a very high penetration, have a increasing penetration rate on the electric trucks or the zero emission trucks. So you can see here it is increasing year by year, and in 2023, the penetration rate of these zero emission trucks has already reached more than 5% across all kinds of trucks, including the light duty, medium duty, and the heavy duty. And so this is the progress made so far. So then let's dive into two cases. One is on the electric urban logistics in Beijing, and for the urban logistics, and I want to classify them into three categories. One is for the instant delivery, and these are mostly used by the electric two-wheelers, and they usually send the goods from retailer to the customer, and it has very strict time window limits. Is around half an hour to 1 hour. And then it's the three-wheeler, and it usually used for the e-commerce parcel delivery, and it has less less strict time constraints compared with the electric two-wheeler for the instant delivery. And then it's a retail distribution, and this kinds of distribution usually use the light duty trucks or the vans, and it sends goods from suppliers to distribution center or the warehouse. And the time constraints will be depending on the type of goods. So for these three different types of urban logistics, they are facing different challenges and have different solutions. So I will talk about this one by one. And firstly, for the electric 2 and 3 wheelers, I think in China most of them are already electrified, but the challenges are still on the road safety and parking management. So the graph here is a survey conducted by ITDB China. We counted the traffic volume of the e-bikes during a lunch peak hour and in an intersection in Beijing, and you can find that the volume is quite high, and in some 5-minute time window, it could even reach 40 vehicles during this 5-minute time window. And however, the rate of like the traffic violation behaviors is very high. And around half of them even didn't wear the helmets, and also the behaviors such as running the red lights or against the traffic flow to ride, it is still very common because they have very strict time window to send the goods to the customers. So this would cause the road transports. This would cause the road accidents heavily. And also for the 3-wheelers and to deliver the parcels, the challenges are on the occupying the sidewalk. For parking, you can see here, and also the overloading is also very common for the 3-wheelers. So this is the challenges for the electric 2 and 3-wheelers. And for the light duty trucks, they have quite different scenarios. And so far, Beijing have already carried out a series of policies to promote electric trucks. And you can see it started from early in 2013, and the national and the local government were providing the purchasing subsidies for these new energy vehicles. And then from the purchasing subsidies, it comes to the right-of-way prioritization rather than giving the subsidies. So you can see the evolution of these supportive policies for the light-duty trucks. And the right-of-way and also the subsidies are really playing a very important role in terms of promoting these light-duty logistic trucks in the urban areas in Beijing. And so what are the challenges and recommendations here? The first one is the range anxiety. So the battery degradation happens for the electric trucks, and especially in the cold weather, the batteries would degrade very severely, and also in the cold chain logistics. And also the high total cost of ownership is also a challenge. Even though with quite a huge amount of subsidies, the fleet operators still couldn't afford to purchase the electric trucks, and these and also compared with the diesel truck, their cost of purchasing is still very high. And the third one is about the imbalanced supply and demand for the charging infrastructure. Despite the growth in Beijing's charging piles in recent years, but the number of these piles and also the locations and the planning, they are still not quite meet the real demand by the operators. So the demand and the supply are not meet with each other. So what we can do in the future, we still recommend to implement the economic incentives for these fleet owners, and also specifically, we really need to design the incentives for the small and medium-sized logistic companies because they are more sensitive to the cost. And then we really need to promote the vehicle leasing business model because we think this is a very effective way to reduce the operating cost and And if you and especially and also like you can purchase the vehicle only rather than purchase the vehicle plus the battery, and because the battery cost could be very high, and if you use the leasing model, it could really lower down your burden of the procurement. And then the third recommendation is about conducting the really detailed analysis of the transportation requirements, including these your logistic route patterns, the daily mileage, and the peak charging times. Therefore, you can understand the specific demands in various use cases, and then you can design the customized charging infrastructure planning solutions based on specific scenarios. So this is what we recommended for the light-duty vehicles in the urban logistic companies. And the second case about the long-haul road freight transportation. So we in ITDP we did a project in Yulin, which is a city located in a very heavily relying on the coal mining, and this project, this zero emission freight corridor project, is initiated by a local leading logistic company, and they are specializing in transporting the coal from the mine to the coal yards. So just so the distance is not very long, and they designed the project into two phases. The phase one is about piloting, and they only constructed one battery swapping station. And if you don't know the battery swapping station, and here is a video showing you how the batteries are swapped for the heavy duty vehicles. And during the first phase, the company also purchased 30 electric heavy-duty trucks, and their daily traveling mileage is around 260 kilometers, but they are just bouncing back. But the single trip is quite short. This is the piloting, and the second phase is to scale up. They are planning to have a corridor with a distance of over 450 kilometers long, and it will cross many different provinces and cross different cities, and they will be purchasing 1,500 electric heavy-duty trucks, and also installing 30 battery swapping stations alongside this corridor, and by 2026. So IDDP is providing the technical support for and helping them to design this piloting and scaling up plans. So we can see the real world performance data. So why this company chose the battery swapping mode rather than the normal charging or the hydrogen electric trucks? So here is a table that I compared with different like the popular filling options, including the diesel, the natural gas, the methanol, the charging, the battery swapping, and the hydrogen. In terms of I compare their load capacity, the vehicle purchasing cost, the maintenance cost, etc. And you can find that the battery swapping really stands out in terms of the very short recharging time, because you don't need to wait a very long time for the battery to be fully charged compared with the charging mode, and you only need to wait for the autonomous charging station to swap your battery automatically. So the less recharging time could really save the time for charging and improve the efficiency. And also the energy cost is quite low compared with the diesel option, because we all know that the electricity cost is and for the electricity price is quite low compared with the diesel. And also the technology is more mature compared with a hydrogen electric vehicle. Although in China, the government is really encouraging or providing larger subsidies for developing the hydrogen infrastructure and hydrogen electric vehicles, but the initial purchasing cost is still very high, and also the technology. I wouldn't say it is mature, and it's especially when transporting the hydrogen and also for installing and for the hydrogen storage, it is still not a very mature technology. And also compared with and also in terms of the GHG emission, the electric option is cleaner than the natural gases and methanol. We all know about this. So this is why this company chose the battery swapping option. And let's take a look at the real world performance data in terms of the total cost of the ownership, comparing the diesel and the battery swapping trucks. And we can see that the graph here, we made that what are the differences? So compare of these two graphs, we can find that the battery swapping option, although the revenue is quite low compared with the diesel trucks, because the revenue is calculated by the ton kilometer transported, and the battery electric trucks would have lower load capacity because the battery is quite heavy, and the diesel truck, you don't have this concern. So although the revenue is a bit of low compared with the diesel, and but the energy cost, the green bar here, is a significant low compared with the diesel option. And so resulting the profit is a bit of low also compared with the diesel option. We also analyzed why it happens, although we think that the process of operating the battery electric truck would have lower cost. So we identified these challenges. So first one is about the load capacity I just mentioned. And the revenue is calculated based on the ton kilometer of the good transported. So if you carry less goods, and you would have less revenue generated. And then it's about the battery swapping standards. The battery swapping stations are not standardized. So trucks with a different brands, they are not able to share the same battery swapping station because the battery types or the plug-in or the plug is not the same one. The third challenge, and also the biggest challenge, is about the fleet operation. Because you switched from the diesel trucks to the electric trucks, you need to rethink about how to operate these electric trucks in terms of design, the charging scheduling plan, and in which time you charge, and how you can reduce the queuing if you are allocating too many trucks to have the battery swapped, and you have to wait outside the battery swapping station for a long time. So the queuing would cause you to have less efficiency. So because of this, you generated less profitability. So how we can deal with these challenges? The first one we recommended is to develop the industry-wide standards for the battery swapping, and also promote the battery as a service business model. The battery as a service business model could heavily help you to save the upfront cost to purchase the vehicle. You can also use the battery bank as a option for the power storage, and you can also make the charging scheduling more efficient. And the second recommendation is about enhancing the fleet management and also the charging infrastructure planning. So in this way, you can boost the effective traveling mileage, while you can minimize the detours and queuing happening. And the third one is also very important. It is about establishing a collaborative ecosystem involving key stakeholders to support this electrification journey of your truck fleet. So this is what we think who the key stakeholders in this process. It will be including the financial institutes. It can help you to design the specific business models and give you the finance schemes and for the battery leasing or the vehicle leasing for the logistic companies. And also the government play an important role to coordinate all of these stakeholders. And also the highway operating companies, they could give you they are in charge of installing the charging infrastructure alongside the highway, and they would provide the charging service to the fleet owners. And of course, the fleet owners, the shippers and the consignees, and they are the ones who have the needs to transport these goods. And also the energy suppliers, they can provide you with the clean energy using the wind, the solar panels, or the green hydrogen to ensure that the overall the life cycle emission is low. So this is what we think the ecosystem look like. Finally, in the summary, I will leave this summary to Bert to summarize what I shared. That's all from my side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Yang, for that enlightened presentation and sharing your invaluable insights with us. I will now hand over to Bert for your comments. So, Bert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Adele, and thank you very much, Yang. I will not summarize your presentation. It's very comprehensive, it's very good, and I think it's very useful to many of us. For the participants, it's good to see that we have people from industry, from government, but also from our colleagues supporting this decarbonization of transport or improving freight activities as well in the region. I'd like to highlight a few points, but before this, for those who are interested, I ask you, Yang, how many battery swapping stations for trucks are already in China? Apparently, there's already more than 20,000 across China. So it's being adopted already uh, quite fast in the region. I'd like to highlight a few things, and which is very relevant for many cities in Asia because, sorry, I'm sharing my slide now. I hope, can you confirm that you can see this?
Yes, but we can see.
Thank you.
Can I ask you to share in presentation mode? Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, I picked this out from our colleagues from the Asian Transport Observatory. This is data from EDGAR that they compiled. I want to highlight this information of PM 2.5 emissions, NOx, black carbon. If you look at the orange and going to the latest data, 2025, this is road emissions. It has gone down tremendously, but now also going up again. There is a general trend wherein countries in the Asia Pacific, but also in general, are having a difficult time going beyond Euro 4 equivalent vehicle emission standards and fuel quality because of the necessary investments needed to improve fuel quality and the technology of the combustion engines. And due to the sheer number of increase of vehicles, especially diesel vehicles, this is also leading to increasing air pollution in many of our cities. For our information, just to remind ourselves, the WHO has actually already genic to humans. So, I think, since 20 And if we look at information from various countries in terms of the share of heavy duty vehicles, we will also realize that most of these heavy duty vehicles are diesel vehicles emitting high emissions. As such, it could be that most of the uh, contributions from the road transport sector, even in urban areas, are coming from diesel vehicles. And going to this last slide, there are several ways of improving the emissions or reducing the emissions from freight. One is electrification, and we see this. This is like decarbonizing fuel or changing the fuel quality. It's one of these um, strategies that we can use. Another is on improving fuel efficiency. Of course, we still have a lot of light duty and heavy duty vehicles on the road, and there is scope for further improvement. Include improving vehicle utilization. This is reducing cabotage or making sure that all the trips are properly used. And then also, of course, modal shift, like shifting to lower carbon modes like rail, also inland water transport. There are many ways. To end, ADB is also looking at ways of supporting the developing member countries in reducing emissions from freight. I have learned that in Thailand, our private sector operations department are also investigating how to support electric trucks with the private sector. I would like to stop here so that we can hear from our speaker in response also to some of the questions that we have already received. I hand over back to you, Adele.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you for the presentation as well, and your invaluable comments. Q Yang, over to you.
Yes, sure. I saw in the chat box there is a question about how the Chinese government is dealing with battery disposal and recycling. We think this is quite an important issue when we are promoting electric, no matter it is trucks or all kinds of electric vehicles, because if we don't dispose these batteries properly, and it will cause severe environmental impacts. So the Chinese government already designed many supportive policies in terms of promoting the circular economy, and also use these degraded batteries to use for other modes, such as the e-bikes batteries. They may comes from the batteries from the disposed batteries from the e-buses or the electric trucks. And also the government is also supporting to setting up many recycling factories, and also giving the subsidies for these factories if they recycle a certain amount of the batteries. And also the government is thinking about using to extend the responsibilities of these OEMs who are producing the electric vehicles. So if you produce one electric vehicle, you have the responsibility to recycle one electric vehicle. So they give you this kind of like the enforcement to ask these OEMs to make the recycling think about the recycling process really important.
Thank you, Kiang. I will move over to questions from the audience, as we have a few questions. How does the government manage the subsidy? How does the subsidy compare to other e-mobility programs in the country? Is there a ceiling for each province or city per year for fare distribution? Is it directed to logistic companies or EV sellers?
Yes, so this is also a very good question because we think from my presentation, you may say the subsidies it appeared so many times, and because in the early stage of promoting electric vehicles in China, the government is heavily relying on providing the subsidies as an incentive for people to purchasing the electric vehicles, but it is it is only the early stage policies. And when the time move on, when the industry is developed more mature, it moved from the purchasing subsidies to the operating subsidies. So if you purchase one vehicle and you don't operate it, you can't receive the subsidy. And also the government is providing the right-of-way prioritizations for these electric vehicles and rather than the direct subsidies. And but from early last year, the government is having a policy, as I mentioned, is to encouraging the early scrapping of the old vehicles and also encouraging you to purchase the new ones and give you a certain amount of subsidies. This subsidy is divided by the national government and the local government. So around half of them are provided by the national, and another half of this subsidy is provided by the local government. So it is shared by the local and the national level. And so this is, I hope it answers your questions.
Thank you, Kiyang. I think given the time, I'm going to move on to one more question. Apart from the financial assistance provided by the government, how are the financial institutions supporting e-freight segment? Are small operators facing challenges in obtaining loans to purchase e-trucks?
Yes, sure. So we also think that financial institutes play very important roles in terms of electrifying the vehicles, and they already designed many like the innovative business models for like the vehicle leasing or the battery leasing, the battery banks for these logistic companies or the fleet owners, so they can have the loans or they can only rent the vehicles or the batteries if they want to change it to the electric trucks. And also the financial institutes are designing many like the insurance plans because we think the insurance is also currently a barrier for these fleet operators because the battery may degrade at a very fast speed, and compared with the diesel trucks and the electric trucks performance, they are not very stable during severe weathers, during the different temperatures. So these financial institutes, they are doing a lot of calculations and analyzing so many historical data and working with the OEMs, working with the fleet operators to think about how to predict what will be happening in the future, and also design the tailored financial plans for these fleet owners for them to being able to purchase the electric trucks.
Thank you, Kiyang. Before closing the session, Bert, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, thank you very much, Adele and Q Young. As mentioned by Johanna, this is the last webinar of the series. We will be having some training together, further consultations together with Adele and the ITP. But this issue on freight is it's a low-hanging fruit, definitely for reducing emissions from the transport sector. But not many cities and national governments have looked at this. So I'm sure in the next stage or in the next phase of this webinar series, trainings, we will look into this issue on freight again. And yeah, with this, I'd like to thank you, Yang, again, our ITDP colleagues working on this topic, and I hand over back to you, Adele. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us, and a special thanks to Yang Liu for that insightful presentation, as well as Bert for your comments. We will share the recording with all the registered participants as soon as possible. Thank you for joining us in this webinar series as well. As Bert mentioned, we are going on a break with the webinars, but are planning to have a series of online training, which we will keep you informed on. They will take place around the end of April or May, and we will share more details as soon as possible. We hope to see you soon in those sessions. Until then, take care and see you soon. Have a lovely day further.
Thank you for everyone joining this webinar. Bye-bye.